You ever notice how everyone talks about which investment to pick, but almost nobody talks about how much you're starting with? Like the strategy is supposed to be the same whether you've got $1,000 or 100,000. It's not. And pretending it keeps people stuck in the wrong vehicles for years. My name is Williams. I spent the better part of a decade testing this, not with theories, with actual money, 3 different ETFs, 3 different starting amounts. And what I found wasn't just about returns, it was about how the size of your position changes what you're actually playing for. Most people think investing is about finding the best fund and putting everything there. That's half right. The other half is understanding that $1,000 and $100,000 don't behave the same way, even in the same fund. One is learning, one is building, one is compounding at a speed that changes your life. Let me walk you through what I learned. Not what the internet says, what the actual experience teaches you when you stop theorizing and start committing real capital. Here's the contrarian part. Most people obsess over which ETF has the highest return. They'll compare 0.8% differences like it's the secret to wealth, and they're missing the entire point. The real edge isn't the fund, it's the threshold where your money starts working harder than you do, and that threshold isn't about percentages, it's about absolute dollars. A 10% return on $1,000 is $100. Nice, you can take someone to dinner. A 10% return on $100,000 is $10,000. That's rent for most people. That's a year of groceries. That's the difference between feeling like you're playing a game and feeling like you've built a machine. The shift happens somewhere between $10,000 and $50,000 invested. Below that, you're accumulating, you're learning the mechanics, you're getting comfortable with volatility. Above that, you're generating actual cash flow from market movements, and your brain starts processing money differently. It's like the difference between knowing how to swim and being able to cross a lake. Same skill, different capability. Let me show you what happened when I tested this with real money. I started with 3 ETFs. One was a broad market index, one was a dividend-focused fund, one was a growth-heavy tech allocation. I put $1,000 in each just to feel how they moved. Then I scaled up to 10,000 in the ones that made sense. Then, when I had the capital, I pushed 1 to 100,000 to see what happened at that level. Here's what I found. At $1,000, every ETF feels the same. You check it once a week, maybe once a month. It goes up $50, it drops 30. You feel nothing because there's nothing to feel. You're not invested enough for it to matter. It's like watching someone else's game. At $10,000, it starts to feel real. A bad week costs you $300. A good month makes you $800. You start caring about the news. You start understanding what moves your positions. But you're still not at the level where the portfolio is doing heavy lifting. You're doing the heavy lifting by adding money every month, and the market is just holding it for you. At $100,000, everything changes. A 1% move is $1,000, a decent quarter is $5,000, a good year is $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 that you didn't work for. You start seeing it not as savings, but as a separate income stream. And once you see it that way, your entire relationship with work shifts. That's the threshold. That's where it stops being about picking the right fund and starts being about protecting the engine you've built. Now here's the psychological part that nobody tells you. When you've only got $1,000 invested, you're still in survival mode with the rest of your life. You're thinking about bills. You're thinking about whether you can afford the weekend trip. Every financial decision feels urgent because you don't have margin. Your investment account is a hobby. It's something you're doing because you know you should, but it's not weight-bearing. It's not structural. When you get to 10,000, you start thinking differently. You've got a cushion, not a big one, but enough that a car repair doesn't spiral into credit card debt. You're not out of survival mode yet, but you can see the edge of it. And that changes how you make decisions. You start saying no to things that don't align with where you're headed. When you hit 100,000, survival mode is over. You're not worried about making rent. You're not worried about your car breaking down. You're thinking in years, not months. And that mental bandwidth, That ability to think long term instead of reactively is worth more than any percentage difference between funds. Think about what that does to your decision making. You're not taking the first job offer because you're desperate. You're not financing things you can't afford because the payment feels manageable. You're designing, you're choosing, and the quality of your choices improves because fear isn't distorting the math. Let me give you the numbers that made this real for me. I tested a broad market ETF, something tracking the S&P 500. Average return over the period I measured was about 9% annually, not flashy, not exciting, just consistent. At $1,000, after 1 year, I had about 90 extra dollars. After 5 years, assuming I didn't add anything, I had around $540, better than a savings account, not life-changing. At $10,000, after 1 year, I had 900 extra. After 5 years, I had about 15,000. Now, we're talking about something that feels meaningful. That's a down payment on a car. That's a financial reset if you lose your job. At $100,000, after 1 year, I had 9,000 extra. After 5 years, I had 153,000. That's $53,000 I didn't have to earn. That's a year of living expenses for a lot of people. That's the point where your portfolio isn't just a tool, it's a partner. The fund didn't change, the returns didn't change, the inputs changed, and the outputs became exponentially more powerful. Here's where people mess this up. They hit 10,000 or 20,000 and they think they've arrived. They start spending differently. They upgrade the apartment. They finance a nicer car. They treat the milestone like a finish line instead of a checkpoint. And what happens? They reset. They're back to small numbers, back to survival mode, back to fighting for every percentage point because they don't have enough capital for absolute dollars to matter. I watched this happen to someone close to me. He built his account up to $35,000 over 4 years, disciplined, consistent. Then he convinced himself he deserved a new truck, not a used one, a new one. $32,000 financed over 6 years. He didn't pull the money out of his investments, but he stopped contributing. And the monthly payment ate up everything he was putting toward his future. 5 years later, his portfolio had grown to $48,000 from market gains alone, but if he'd kept contributing instead of financing the truck, he'd have been at $90,000. That's $42,000 he traded for the feeling of driving something new off the lot, and the truck, worth $18,000 now? That's not judgment, that's math, and math doesn't care about how good the leather seats felt. Let's talk about what happens when you protect the compounding instead of interrupting it. You get to $100,000 invested. You keep your lifestyle stable. You keep adding, let's say you're putting in $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year. With a 9% average return. In 5 years, you're at $260,000. In 10 years, you're at $540,000. At that level, a 7% withdrawal rate is $37,000 a year. That's not full retirement for most people, but it's half a salary. It's the difference between needing a job and choosing a job. It's walking away money, and walking away money changes everything. Your boss disrespects you, you've got options. Your company pivots in a direction you don't believe in, you can leave. Someone offers you a position that pays less but aligns with what you actually care about, you can take it. You're not stuck, and not being stuck shows up in how you carry yourself. People sense it. They don't know why you seem unbothered by office politics, but you do. It's because your security isn't tied to their approval. That's the real return, not the percentage, the posture. Now here's the warning I wish someone had given me earlier. Once you build this, you're going to feel pressure to prove it, to show people that the discipline worked, to upgrade in visible ways. Don't. The moment you start treating your portfolio as proof of success is the moment you stop letting it do what it's designed to do. It's not there to validate you, it's there to free you. I've seen people hit 6 figures and immediately start talking about it. They buy the watch, they move to an expensive neighborhood, they want the external world to reflect the internal achievement, and within 2 years they've cannibalized the foundation to fund the appearance of wealth. Real wealth is invisible. It's the account nobody knows about. It's the freedom to say no without explaining why. It's the ability to take a year off if you want to, not because you're rich, but because you built a system that doesn't require you to be in motion every single day. If you let the portfolio stay boring, it keeps working. If you turn it into a trophy, it stops compounding and starts performing for an audience that doesn't care about your future. Here's the opportunity cost that people miss. Let's say you've got $120,000 invested. You've been building this for 8 years. You see a car you want, $55,000. You can afford the payment. It won't break you. But if you take that $55,000 and leave it invested instead, in 15 years, it's $150,000. If you buy the car in 15 years, it's worth $12,000 and you've paid $68,000 total after interest. That's a $138,000 decision disguised as a $55,000 purchase. I'm not saying never buy the car. I'm saying know what you're trading, because once you see it clearly, some decisions stop making sense, not because you can't afford them, because you can't justify what they cost you in time. Here's what I want you to take from this. The fund matters, but the fund is the vehicle. The real game is getting enough capital into the vehicle that it starts moving on its own. $1,000 teaches you the mechanics. $10,000 builds your confidence. $100,000 changes your life. Not because you're rich, because you've built something that works whether you're working or not. And once you've built that, the entire conversation shifts. You're not asking which ETF has the best returns. You're asking how to protect what you've built while it compounds into something that gives you choices most people never get. That's the shift. From picking investments to designing a life where money works for you instead of the other way around. And 15 years from now, when people ask how you got here, you won't say you found the perfect fund. You'll say you found the discipline to let it grow without touching it. You'll say you treated the first 100,000 like a seed, not a reward. And that difference, that one decision to protect instead of prove, is the difference between looking successful and actually being free. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.